Welcome to Africa Chat Show. Today we have Betty Osei Bonsu, who is a secular economy enthusiast. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's from Ghana. She's currently pursuing her master's in the United Nations University. She serves as a country manager. I actually read your profile on LinkedIn, and then I'm actually repeating what I actually saw. So if it's wrong, just let me know. You're currently serving as a Uganda country manager for an organization called the Green Africa Youth Organizations. Yeah. And that's where I actually saw your profile from. And I do know you actually do have your own stuff going on, your own organization as well. So welcome to the show, Betty. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I think one very important thing you forgot to mention is the fact that I'm the founder and host of Be Inspired with Stories from Africa.
Yes. Sorry about that. That's what I was trying to remember, but it never came to my mind. So yeah, she is the founder, guys, of B.ISA, right? That's how it's pronounced. And Be Inspired. Be Inspired. I'm sorry, what was it again?
Be Inspired with Stories from Africa.
Be Inspired with Stories from Africa, and the abbreviation is B.ISA, B.ISA. Yeah. Okay, so since we actually talking about B.ISA right now, tell us about it. How did it come about?
Okay, for me, everything started with a story.
Okay.
My first trip to the United Kingdom was to attend the Conference of Parties as part of my developmental works.
Okay.
Upon reaching there, I was surrounded by a lot of youth, Black youth, who kept on complaining about the difficulties in Africa, how socially things are unfavorable, politically, and environmentally. Like when you look at all phases of life, they could mention one problem or the other. And then I kept on asking myself, why do youth travel all the way to the Western world to tell their stories? Why don't they tell themselves their stories in their own place?
In their own homes.
So the idea of, okay, why don't we have a platform that promotes inspiring stories, where the story of Africa no longer becomes vulnerability, but that of resilience, where communities and countries are learning from each other, tapping into the knowledge, and then causing inspiring change in their communities. So one aspect of the platform is highlighting youthful, inspirational works within communities. You see youth that are very young doing marvelous and inspiring works like converting organic waste within their various homes to fertilizers to be used, and is commercialized in the community. You see young person at the age of 20 building electrical cars that is used in conveying disabled people. You see different solutions being highlighted, and you find out that within countries in Africa, we don't learn from each other. For example, you hear of the story of Sierra Leone, you hear of Ghana. In the Western world, Africa is seen to be a country and not a continent. And thus, it's time we leave that particular narrative. You get me? So now, why don't we highlight those different countries in Africa? That it is not a country, but it is a continent hosting very, very resourceful population and resources. And so that's the platform for you. And Be Inspired with Stories from Africa, where we can build the capacities of communities to tell their own stories. They can learn from each other, indigenous knowledges are shared, and through that we are connecting communities with communities. That's the platform.
Well, thank you so much, Betty. I have a question. I will piggyback to what you just said. But before we move on, I wanted to know, well, I have actually followed your page, your YouTube page, and your LinkedIn as well for some time. But most of the viewers may not know. But I'm kind of curious. Let's take it back a little bit. Okay. Tell us about yourself. like your background and everything. I know that you're from Ghana, and that's where it ends. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, I hope to share a more detailed story one day.
Okay.
I'm that young lady who was from a very poor background. A very poor background. Our source of livelihood, my mom would always go to markets to get discarded food, proteins, bring it home, prepare our food. In the house, we were living in a very slummy area, so you find out that whenever it rains, we end up moving our belongings, raising them up to prevent the water from getting to them. And sometimes I would have to walk miles just to wait until the rain has subsided, because you keep on packing the water out from the house and the water doesn't stop. But then our story came to an end when the entire house got burnt to the ground, because it was a compound house.
Wow.
And that was due to a faulty electrical wiring. We had neighbors in the house who refused to pay light bill and decided to do illegal tapping of lights to other areas. Apart from that, you have those high heat waves also influencing those connections. And with that, the entire house got burnt. We found ourselves moving to another area, which was a very rowdy area. But then, as much as we were poor, my mother had a lot of values. She was a storyteller, and that's what I tapped into. Every day she goes to get meal for us. She comes back home. She sits us down. And surprisingly, her favorite, should I call it a meal? A lot of people would not see it to be that, but bread and tea.
Okay.
Sit down with that in the evening. That's what she wants to eat. And she begins to tell us stories, how her day went, what is happening in the community. And that was where I picked my storytelling from. I didn't know this until I started working in the development field. Fortunately for us, they tried their best, my parents. They educated us to the level they could afford, and the rest we just had to push it for ourselves. I went to the university. I was a very practical person, so I did a project work that really caught the attention of my supervisors and the head of department. So that project won the best projects in the department. So that's where I also identified my zeal for community development and also that of the environment, because I did environmental science with Ghana, University of Cape Coast. After that, I did my national service, which was mandatory, and I volunteered. I did one volunteering work, which was traveling to...
Wait, so after the mandatory, you actually went back and volunteered again? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of, you know.
I don't know too many people that would do that, but I didn't mean to distract you. Keep on with your story.
That's fine. You know, when it comes to Africa, you really have to find opportunities for yourself, right?
That's true.
You don't see that when opportunities walk to you. You have to go for them.
That's
and
true.
One way that you, as a person, you should be able to develop, you should be able to groom yourself is through experience, knowledge gaining. And it's only volunteering that you could gain that, because people are not willing to pay people with less experience. You understand?
Yes.
So after the mandatory national service, I did one particular volunteering work, which was just a one-time job, like a one-time work. I traveled free to another city and I delivered a presentation, because as part of the award in school, everyone also saw me to be that communication person.
Right.
So I got a recommendation from one of my students, and then they invited me for that conference. At the end of the conference, it was, oh, wow, beautiful. Everything ended. I went home, and surprisingly, after my national service, I was also kind of accoladed by my management during national service that I got a contract after the national service to produce environmental yearly reports for mining companies. So I worked with Calta and other consultancies that I did. So during this period, like that would be like 1 year, I received a phone call from that organization I volunteered for 1 year back. And that was Green Africa Youth Organization. And they asked me one question. They said, Betty, are you free? We have a position. We want you to fill it. And that was it for me.
Wow,
said,
wow.
Okay, I didn't get a break after several weeks. I said,
Right.
okay, why don't I do that? So I started from programs assistant for the Green Africa Youth Organization in Ghana. I started
So is the Green Africa organization, does it belong to Ghana, or is it an organization from outside of Africa? That's what I'm kind of a little bit trying to understand.
The Green Africa Youth Organization is Pan-African.
Okay.
It originates from Ghana, but it's implementing its offices in African countries. So it's existing in Uganda and also existing in Kenya. And
so
it's also
Betty, do you yourself, do you have, with all of the work you're doing, right? I didn't really stop you, but I'll have you continue your story. It's kind of like interesting and very powerful as well. From where you came from your background, the resilience. I was going to ask you what motivated you, but I think you already mentioned that in the story because I could see that. But what I wanted to ask you, do you have any national recognition at all in Ghana?
Surprisingly, not yet. I do not have any national recognition.
Okay.
Maybe I'll be getting there one of these days.
Yeah, because you're doing a really good job, and I think that, like, I don't know if you've watched my videos. Even though I haven't been to Ghana ever since I left, I'm always looking back, looking around, looking at people, influential people, and people that are well-to-do. And I don't just call anybody to go talk to. I don't just want to talk to anybody. I see people that I see potential, and then I see people that are doing something that's looking to the future or looking towards the right direction for the future of Ghana and Africa as a whole. And then those are the kind of people that I'm very much interested in. Like, for example, the likes of Maya and all of that stuff. I actually do have an episode on this channel that I talked about one of the stuff that he just recently experienced. And so it's kind of really odd, I want to say, that really you're not really getting a lot of recognition, because I know you were gonna get there, but you are at the UN university right now, right? And you don't really have a lot of recognition. Tell us about that, and then you can come back to your story. Tell us about, how did you get to the UN from Ghana straight to I know you were building up to it, but I'm kind of curious. I want to know, and then you can go back and continue from where you were before I stopped you.
Okay. Surprisingly, one of my greatest ambition is to become the next UN ambassador for Ghana. But then I've always just been that dreamer. I've always dreamed of and put action behind every particular dream.
Right.
After that particular thought, from a young age, I've just dreamt of that platform, those stages. But then my developmental works took me to the UN, because you find yourself doing a lot of community works, because those are huge areas for them. Projects that attract development within communities, and those are also the areas that attract them. So it's just something that happened. I don't know. It's just something that happened. It's surprisingly also, someone sent me the link and said, Betty, come on, you're doing great works. Why don't you just apply for this school? For this scholarship. Was actually a scholarship.
Scholarship,
school.
Okay.
Yeah, so that scholarship. And I applied, and that was it. Surprisingly, even the application was weird. I was supposed to submit my application, let's say on the 13th of, for example, on the 13th of December, I submitted it like 10th of December because I got a link
late.
Mm-hmm. But surprisingly, I pushed the button of send the email on my laptop. It didn't go. until the
Wow.
12th of December. I checked. Something just told me to check my email to just see something. I just checked my email and I realized I had a draft. And I was like, what draft did I prepare that I don't know about? I checked it out and oh my God, that email didn't go. That was 12 midnight. Like 12 midnight of that day. And I just pushed that button and did the sign of the cross. And that was it. A few months later, I just got that email saying, congratulations, you've been selected. And that was it for
Wow.
me. And
Wow.
that's it.
Wow. So, was it just an application or did you have to write an essay or something attached
Oh my
to it?
God. Oh my God. You should know what comes with applying for scholarship in
Yeah,
school.
I
It's
asked that because I did a scholarship too here in the United States, and I had to write an essay about where I was coming from, being African, ending up here academically. It was an academic scholarship, just like what you have, but except that I was in a private university where I would have to end up paying my tuition, and that helped me so much because it did covers at least part of my tuition. So you're saying, yes, there was an essay that you had to attach to it, right?
Yeah, so a lot of documents. So motivation letter, documents you have to fill, just plenty of documents. So
Correct. Yeah,
you
right.
have to do all that. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like whatever will be, will be. So, congratulations on that. And I see you're still doing good, big, and good, great and amazing stuff. Tell me about it. I was kind of curious. How do you go from all of this to preparing charcoal, like charcoal? Because there was an article that you wrote about preparation of the charcoal brisket, or from is it palm kernel?
Kernel shells.
Yes. So tell me about that. How did that come about? Is that part of your the community outreach or community support that you have going on with B.ISA?
So that was the project that won the best project in school. That was my basic.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that was more like just mitigating carbon dioxide introduction into the atmosphere, because community people prefer to rather go cut the woods, cut the trees to produce charcoal than using any other sustainable form of energy. So then my idea was to use waste like palm kernel shells because it had high energy value. It's just, and it's a particular area that is not so much patronized. So the idea was to use that, convert it to charcoal briquette that could be patronized by community members. So that was
Wow.
how that project came about.
And are you guys not killing trees though? Is it, or are you guys? So I know there are several organizations around the world that use charcoal, and what they do is they are doing afforestation. Is it afforestation or deforestation? I can't remember which one it is, which is the process of cutting the trees and replacing them with younger ones. And then that's how they actually getting the raw materials. So how did you guys get your palm kernel, and where did you get it from in Ghana?
Okay, palm kernel shells are fruits from the trees. So
Right,
you
the
don't
palm.
necessarily have to cut down the trees to get a palm kernel shells. And palm kernels are used for a lot of value chain of products. They can be used for oil. They are also used for cooking. They're also used like several things. Even there's something they call the pupa. It's a particular animal that
Oh
can be
yeah,
used.
that little. It looks like almost like when a butterfly is little.
Yes,
Yeah, when a
yes, yes.
butterfly looks like a caterpillar, but it's not a caterpillar. Okay,
Yeah.
I know what a pooper is now. Then okay.
Yeah. So most of the time, the finished or left waste product is the shells of the palm kernel. You get me? And this is
Okay.
just sometimes thrown away, left somewhere or the other, just discarded, and that was it. So why don't we go source for those particular waste and then show to
Smart.
the world that this can be used, right? To also combat one particular issue we are facing when it comes to climate change. So,
Yes.
so that was the idea.
Okay. So one of the main driving force for my channel or for the show is getting the rest of the world together in terms of Black people. Most especially, I live in America. I am Black, but I'm African. There are other Black people that are from here. And most of the time, the world, or even some of them, the same people see themselves as a little bit different from me. And in my own understanding, the only difference that I do see here is I was born in Africa and they were born here. And then so we ended up having a little bit of a different cultures. But at the end of the day, after some years of living in America, I could tell you for sure, even if they don't believe it or not, we behave the same. We're the same people. Like you could tell it's in the DNA, right? So that brings me back to my question. In 2018, September, Ghana's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, declared formally, or he actually launched a program called the Year of Return. And then he actually talked about it, right? And in 2019, it took effect, and now it's evolved into a whole global and kind of like economic development activity that happens in Ghana almost every year, especially in December. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts since B.ISA and the Green Africa Youth and everything that you're doing in line? I could almost say that it all lines up with what he started, right? So what are your thoughts about the whole thing, and just let us know, like in the brief scope, what you think about the whole coming back home and getting Black people back. Yeah.
When I came to do my master's here in Germany, I told my family that when I'm done, I want to come back home. And they're like, what's wrong with you? Why would you say that? Come on, stay there. But I have a lot of reasons for that. But then the idea of, I'll share those though. The idea of our president initiating the diaspora returning back to their root is a very good one. It speaks about the symbology called Sankofa. And Sankofa means don't forget where everything started. Don't forget that as much as you're moving on, there is a place behind you that you could turn back and reflect back. And I think that's just the idea of the president. And it's a good medium of knowledge exchange and interculture exchange also. The people here have grown in a particular environment that promotes creativity and innovation. Mm-hmm. As much as Africa has that capacity and tendency to innovate, but they don't have that culture that promotes it. And I feel like if our people come to this part of the world to learn all those, why not go back and impact the others? And as part of B.ISA, I say youth inspiring their world. You are a young person. You've gotten the opportunity. Why not also extend your hand for other people to give them those opportunity? As I'm speaking to you today, I have several youth that I speak with, I support. The last time on my LinkedIn page, I said, everyone come together who wants to go to school. You have questions for applications to school. Just, I'm having a webinar, join and ask me any questions you want.
Right. So what about the African Americans? So this invitation that he put out there, right? We mainly only see a lot of famous Black Americans that came back. I know there are a few Black Americans that are here that are not famous, just like me, ordinary people. What is the benefit to those guys? Why did they have to come back? I mean, me as an African, I kind of understand. What do you think it means for those guys?
Okay, they are going back to tap back to their root. Knowing who you are gives more like vision on how far you want to go, and sometimes also assist you in developing yourself or even nurturing your other young ones. And also it's creating that particular narrative and story that the people in Africa that are diasporas in at abroad, they are not lost from their roots. They're not lost from their family. So it just fosters those exchange. Just that's grassroots tapping. It encourages that, and those benefits. It's very important to know who you are, where you're
That's
from.
true.
And a lot of people in the diaspora have lost that. And then you tend to behave in a certain way. But then knowing where you are from, who you are, impacts your life more than you could even know. So I think those are some of the benefits that they get.
Well, thank you for that. So what keeps you going? I see a lot of like energy, motivation here, a lot of like dreams, which everybody's allowed to dream. I don't know if you know Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey once said that you should be able to dream so big that your dreams begin to scare you. It's like, what am I thinking? But then it's a dream. Dreams are sometimes something that becomes a reality, and dreams sometimes may not always work. But I see you having a big dream. You having a lot of enthusiasm, and then there's this certain certainty that comes with it, with you in particular. So what keeps you going like that?
Okay, the fact that I don't want my children to go through what I went through keeps me going.
That is very simple. So what would you tell someone that's aspiring to embark on the same journey that you are on right now? I know you've been talking to youth and other people around, but you haven't spoken to me. So take me as an example. What would you tell me? Example, say if I wasn't in Ghana, I wasn't here in America, and I was a normal Ghanaian youth that you met, and I'm like, hey, Betty, how are you doing what you're doing? How'd you get how far you are? What would you tell me?
I would say it's not an easy journey. It's not an easy road. Just keep pushing, no matter the circumstances, no matter the situation. And know that at the end of every tunnel, there is light.
Do you have anything to tell Ghanaians as a whole, the ones that are very active on social media? Do you have anything to tell them?
I would say support your own.
Okay.
Because I had a particular instance or situation where when I started B.ISA, I reached out to one famous person on LinkedIn. And I told the person, this and this is what I want to do. What does he think? And the person's response was not very encouraging. But then I told myself, this even makes me angry. I'm going to push more. And that's it for me.
Very smart.
To the famous people out there, support other people because you will not be there forever. Other people have to come behind you. And they said the latter will be greater than the former. We have to
Amen.
to understand this. And this gives the sustainability, its long-lasting name, sustainability in every trade.
So what about the normal everyday Ghanaian social media users that come online, get a little bit of bandwidth just to attack someone? Do you have something to tell those guys?
Okay, I wanted, before I had the attack, I wanted to say they should support small businesses. Okay. Now growing individuals, they should support them because surprisingly, they would surely improve. So that is it. But to the attackers, know that one day your day is also going to come. That day you would want to initiate something. You want to come up with something. The thing you did to someone yesterday would surely come for you.
Someone will do it to you. Well, very well said, Betty. From your story that you shared, I want to share mine too, and then we're going to end this conversation. It's really nice. It's really interesting, but at some point we would have to end it. And enough said. A word to a wise. But a few years ago, so right now I'm a computer network engineer. Right, a few years ago, I was at the bottom. I was kind of like, I had already done computer work before, but then I landed a job where I wasn't on the top. I wasn't in the middle. I was kind of like a beginner in that company, or where I used to work. And then there was this other African guy. He was from, I think, if I'm not wrong, I think he was from Ethiopia. And he was like the senior topmost engineer, network engineer. And I was like, oh, from one African to another. You know, I was highly motivated, like I just asked you right now. I was asking you for a purpose. So I was seeing the guys like, oh, I want to be like this guy. Oh, and he's from Africa. Oh, yeah. You know, I one day approached a guy and I told him what I was dreaming and aspiring to do. And he asked me one network question that from that day, glory be to God, I have never forgotten the answer to it. But on that day, I did not know the answer. He then proceeded to tell me that you will never be a network engineer if you don't know this question that I just asked you. Maybe find something else to do. Is there not something else you were doing before now? And I was like, yeah, there was something else I was doing. I was actually, I was doing packaging. I was working for FedEx doing packaging. He's like, yeah, maybe that will help. And he meant it, you know, he really meant it. And it really crushed me for especially coming from where I'm coming from and where I was looking at this person, putting him on a pedestal. So yes, you are very right, Betty. Sometimes you don't have to look for anybody for motivation. It's always within yourself. If you had listened to this person, we would not be sitting here having this conversation today. So congratulations on pushing yourself. Congratulations for not ever giving up. And I see you becoming the next UN general, like you said, hopefully replacing Kofi Annan in the next near future. And be highly excited and actually humbled that I was able to get the chance to interview the next UN secretary first, because this video is going to be there for reference. And in the future, when I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when you become someone bigger, people will refer back to this video and remember you for what you said. And you've really spoken a lot of wisdom today.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much.
And please, they should go subscribe to all our channels. On YouTube,
yes.
Just tag at B.ISA Africa, you get us. LinkedIn, Be Inspired System Africa. Facebook, B.ISA with Betty. And Instagram, Twitter, we also the B.ISA Africa. B.ISA Africa. Just check that out. You'll find us.
Well, guys, you heard it from the horse's own mouth. B.ISA on all platforms. I'm sorry, is it B.ISA, right? On all platforms. I've seen the YouTube channel. I think I've seen the LinkedIn, and I haven't seen the Twitter yet, but it's on all social medias. Subscribe to her channel. She's doing amazing work. I've seen her go into, people that was it some kids that were sexually molested or something like that you were supporting and all of that stuff. You're doing really good. Like, I have watched your work, and that's what I'm saying right now. Well, thank you so much one more time for coming, and let's do it again.
Yeah, we will.